Hello. So, my name's David Wain Heapy. I'm from a London-based, sorry, one second. There we go. I'm from a London-based e-commerce agency called Best Response Media. We design and develop Magento e-commerce websites, but then we also do a range of digital marketing services to help our clients get more traffic and also, quite importantly, to help them improve their conversion rate. So what I want to talk to you about today is essentially how to double your e-commerce conversion rate using CRO, or conversion rate optimization. The reality of it is there's no top 10 tips for improving your conversion rate, putting a special message on your site or something like that. It's hard work, but it can pay off hugely. This is a really useful and important quote to pay attention to. The fact of the matter is, it is much easier to double your conversion rate to double your business by doubling your conversion rate rather than doubling your traffic. You know, assuming that you're getting a decent level of traffic to your site, say 10,000 visitors a month, something like that, but your conversion rate is currently 1%, you could either go and try and find another 10,000 visitors of a similar quality, or figure out ways you can sell more to the people that are actually already coming to your store. But what is a conversion rate? Well, obviously, we all know what that is. It's the percentage of people that are going to come to your site and actually make a purchase. But it's not really as simple as that. The first mistake a lot of our clients make, a lot of e-commerce managers, marketing managers, they'll come to us and say, oh, our conversion rate was 2% last month, but now it's down to 1%. What's going wrong? You know, you're doing bad work for us. But then when you actually dig a little bit deeper, you see that there's nothing wrong with the conversion rate that's actually generating sales, but they're looking at it as an average. You need to segment it down. And perhaps it's that they had a very big campaign with a local newspaper. It delivered a load of traffic, but no sales, which is relatively normal. Conversion rate optimization is essentially, it's improving the user experience of your site to enable people to complete the task that you want them to do, which is to make more, to make purchases and to make more sales. Pretty much every site will benefit from this, and even the likes of Amazon, who are constantly obviously investing in improving their conversion rate, improving the user experience. But on the sort of SME level, the sites are just littered with user experience problems. So the opportunities are huge to actually implement something like this. But I'd say the big sort of takeaway from today is it needs to be data-driven. The first mistake that we find from people that talk to us about doing CRO is they just want to jump straight into doing an A/B test, or maybe they've already tried doing something and it hasn't really had any kind of an effect. It needs to come from real data. So what I want to talk to you about today and share with you is the processes that we take in our agency for actually finding this data and implementing an effective program. But where do you actually find the data? Well, the first thing you need to do is conversion research. This is a huge job, but it's a job that will pay dividends when you actually do the work. There's a number of steps that you need to go through in order to find this information. The first one being heuristic analysis. Now, this is essentially getting into the mind of the visitor of your site, going through on different browsers, on different platforms, desktop, mobile, etc., and following the user journeys that you want them to take, whether it's someone visiting the home page and going through, searching for a product, adding it to basket and so on, and you're looking for problems that might actually stick out to you, but you need to follow some kind of a framework. We tend to use the LIFT framework from an organization called Wider Funnel. They have a book called You Should Test That, which is really good, and it covers this in a lot more detail. But essentially what you do is every single page you're on, you want to look at the relevance and clarity and see how much you can maximize these areas, and you want to reduce distraction and anxiety. So some examples: relevance. You land on a category page for an e-commerce site that sells men's shoes. Are there men's shoes being displayed, or maybe there's flip-flops or sandals or trainers? You know, how relevant is this to what people are expecting to see? Clarity. Maybe it's you're on a product page of a site that sells office furniture, but the lead photograph has a table, and the product page is for a table, but it's surrounded by chairs. Is it clear? Is this part of the offer? Is this just to demonstrate what it looks like with chairs around it? And then you've got distraction. You need to minimize that as much as possible. And a really obvious one that we see all the time is you're on a product page, you've got a big add to basket button, and you've got even bigger social share icons. What do you want people to do? Do you want them to share it onto Facebook, or do you want them to actually make a purchase? And then finally, anxiety. There's loads of things that could cause anxiety with people. If you're a less known store, can they trust that they're going to receive their product? Maybe it's a site that sells fashion, sells clothes. Well, the biggest sort of anxiety-causing thing that we find when we poll people is sizes. Is this going to fit? What's this size? Is it truly a medium or what have you? So, is there a visible size guide available? But the main thing is we're going to go through every single page of the site, applying this framework and looking for things that stand out to us that could be causing problems. When we've done that, then we want to move on to technical analysis. So it's following a similar process, but here we're actually looking for bugs and issues. Maybe there's issues with certain browsers. Maybe there's speed that's causing a problem. Speed is a conversion killer, and again, you'll be surprised at how many big retailers that we find in the UK that still have incredibly slow sites. Here's some data here from a survey that showed 47% of people expect a web page to load in 2 seconds or less. We've recently started working with a major UK retailer, and currently this site is loading about 9 or 10 seconds. That in itself, fix that and you're going to fix a lot of problems. So you've done your sort of front-end analysis looking at the website, following these processes, but then you actually want to get into the analytics itself. Google Analytics is generally the tool that most people use, and as long as you've had it on your site for long enough, it's going to have a wealth of information. But again, most e-commerce managers don't know how to use it. They don't know where to start. Just to touch back on what I spoke about before, this is the first error that people look at. It's looking at averages. So they'll go in and they'll look at their conversion rate, and they'll just see all traffic, all platforms, everything, one conversion rate, which is completely the wrong way to do it, because different traffic performs in different ways, different platforms are going to perform in different ways, so you need to start segmenting. First, simple segments, things like compare mobile versus desktop, compare organic versus paid search. The people are going to be coming with different intentions. Paid search, you're not sending people to the homepage, you're much more laser targeting keywords. Organic, it's a lot broader. But then even with this kind of examples, say you're looking at mobile devices, comparing Apple versus Android, it's generally perceived wisdom that Apple converts higher than Android, and the belief is that people that own Apple devices are a little bit richer and more keen to spend money, but it's not always as clear as that. For example, we've seen cases where, yes, Apple is converting higher than Android, but Apple users are also spending twice as long on the pages as Android, so you want to look a bit at maybe if we can find ways to engage Android users a bit more, that could have an impact on conversions. And tracking back to what we were just looking at with the technical analysis, maybe you've got some major rendering issues on Android devices that you weren't aware of. Review browser use. Again, really common example. You'll find that there's a particular browser that might be generating a lot of traffic, but the conversion rate is right down compared to a newer version. Maybe it's an older version of IE. Going back to what we've looked at with the technical analysis, we might see that there's a major bug. Is it worth fixing it? Well, yes, if it's generating enough traffic. And then comparing mobile versus desktop. Generally, we're seeing in the UK, mobile traffic is now way exceeding desktop traffic, but the conversion rate is not. Now, most retailers will have some kind of a responsive site, but it's just a case that they've concertinaed it down. They haven't put enough thought into the mobile experience. The checkout, the basket, product page, key stuff is below the fold, headers are too big. It's all stuff that needs to be properly addressed. Moving on from looking at individual segments, Google Analytics has also got something called advanced segments, which essentially it lets you build your own custom segment reports based on the majority of the data that's in analytics, which gives you even more specific detail. Just doing a simple one like comparing mobile organic versus desktop organic, again, it lets you just drill down that little bit more and get some more detail about where some problems could lie. We've also got site content reports. This is another really, really quick win because you might see that there's particular pages that are getting a lot of traffic, but they're performing a lot lower. The bounce rate is potentially a lot higher. Again, comparing them side by side, you might see some obvious issues. If it's a product page that's doing really well and there's another one next to it which is bouncing a lot higher, again, you can uncover a lot of problems. And site search. Site search, generally we find that people that use site search, they convert much higher than people that don't. And if that is the case, well, how prominent is your search box? How many people are actually using it? Is it easy and clear to see? Are you just using Magento search, which everyone knows is not very good? Or are you using a third party like DoFinder or Clevu? Have you looked into improving that? Also, what pages are visitors searching on? If you're finding visitors are searching maybe on a category page or a product page, and they're further down their journey, then maybe you've actually got a problem with your filtering options on your category page, or your navigation's not set up very well. Goals are really useful. Generally, you obviously want to set up e-commerce conversion tracking so you can see the revenue that's being generated, but you still want to set up goals as well. And you basically have two different types of goals. You have destination goals and event goals. So with destination goals, it'll trigger when a particular URL is fired. For example, if they reach a thank you page on the checkout. Whereas event goals give you a lot more sort of granular detail, but you really need to set a Google Tag Manager for these to work properly. But some examples of these could be, you can put an event on how far people scroll down a page. If they're clicking on filters on the category page, if they're clicking on the size guide on a product page. We've got an example with a retail client of ours in the UK. They found that the people that were clicking on the size guide were converting 8 times higher than the site average. So we made the size guide a bit more prominent, and it doubled the site conversion rate. Individual steps in the Magento checkout. Unfortunately, as default, you can't see the process in the Magento checkout if you don't set up event tracking. Set that up, and then you can actually see, well, where are people dropping out there? Where might there be problems? Which leads on to funnel and goal flows. You can set up funnels on a particular journey that you want people to take. A standard one is from the basket to conversion and completing the purchase. And we can actually see where are the problems in these particular funnels. Maybe people are dropping out on the shipping part. Well, are we offering enough shipping options? Is this the first time people are finding out that we don't give free shipping? There's a lot of things around there. And then with goal flows, it gives you more information than the funnels, but it's not as immediate. You can't just scan it. You have to spend a bit more time. But again, it does let you filter by different variables. Analytics review is going to take a long time, as with the other steps, but it's really, really worthwhile. So once you've completed that, then you want to go on to mouse tracking. There's a lot of different mouse tracking softwares available, but we tend to use one called Hotjar. It's really, really good, and it's pretty reasonably priced. But what this lets you do is record user sessions of everybody that visits your site on the devices from different locations, and the insights, again, are amazing. It's like you're just peering over someone's shoulder while they're using the site. You need to dedicate a fair amount of time to sit down and just watch these sessions once you've set it up on your site. But again, the insights can be amazing. The good thing about Hotjar as well is it lets you also set up funnels similar to in Google Analytics. So if you want to just watch specific videos at a particular point within the site, maybe people are dropping out somewhere, then you can do that within Hotjar. It also lets you watch them at a faster speed than real time, so you can scan through them a little bit quicker. So the first area of conversion research is about looking at the data that you've got. So reviewing the site yourself, looking at it from a technical perspective, looking at analytics, looking at the user sessions with mouse tracking. Then we want to move on to the qualitative data, which is reaching out to your customers and asking them, what are the problems with our site? How could it be better? So the first way you want to do that is with running surveys and polls. Hotjar, again, has got a really simple tool that you can put on the site. You can specify even particular pages, and you can just ask a yes-no question. A great place to put it is on poor-performing product pages. So you put it on this particular page and it pops up and says, you know, is there a particular issue that's stopping you from making this purchase today? If they answer yes, you can ask them a bit more information. Now, that obviously could step in the way from them making a purchase. It could add the friction, but it's already performing badly, so it's a place you need to find out why. And again, the insights can be phenomenal. On top of that, you can also run more detailed surveys. If you've got an email database, maybe set up a competition with a prize for, you know, winning a particular product you sell or a free voucher, and you can ask them a lot more information about what they like about your site, what they don't like, how they generally shop, where else they shop. All this information that can give you just the insight that you didn't have previously. And on a similar token, then you've got user testing. This is where you're actually going to recruit real live people that fit your customer demographic, and you're going to sit them down on a computer, set them a particular task, going through your website. Maybe you want them to go on, you want them to search for a particular product, you want them to look for the shipping and returns information, and then complete the transaction. While they're doing that, they're talking out loud about what they're doing, and again, it's giving you further insight into maybe particular problems that they might be having, or things they also like and things that are working well for them. You can also get them to do similar tests on competitor websites and see how they stack up. Now, in terms of recruiting people for this, there are online sites, things like usertesting.com, where you can plug in some demographics and they'll find you some people, which are okay, but it's much better if you can actually manage the recruitment of these people yourself. You can use maybe a local market research agency, or even just go into a coffee shop, look for someone who looks like they might be your customer and offer to buy them a cup of tea if they'll sit down for 5 minutes and just run through this with you. And then finally, if you've got a call center, if you take telephone sales, if you just have a phone number that customers can call, speak to the people that answer that phone, because they will probably sit down and talk to you all day about all the problems that people face. Again, it's another huge insight, and it's things that people don't really obviously think about. So that's a rough overview of the kind of areas you can complete in conversion research. It will take a long time, and it's a lot of hard work, but it will pay off massively. The worst thing with conversion rate optimization is making assumptions, is going, right, you know, we think strongly that we should do this, this, and this, without actually having any data behind it. So, you know, you want to walk through the site yourself following this framework, do the technical analysis, see if there's any obvious bugs that might have been missing. Dig deep into analytics, look at these mouse tracking sessions and see how people are using your site. Run user testing, look at running polls and surveys. And then you need to assess what you've got. And you generally sort of categorize it into 3 areas. So you've got areas that you can just fix straight away, like the speed issues, for example, or particular rendering issues with browsers. You've got tests, so these are areas where you know you've got a problem and you've got a pretty clear idea about the hypothesis for testing for that. And then these other ones where you need to build a hypothesis. So it's areas where you know there's an issue, but you don't know why, so you need to do a bit more work. And then it's time to move on to testing. If you just jump onto an A/B testing software and just testing the color of a button or something like that without any reason why you do that, you could potentially drop your conversion rate rather than increasing it. And poor A/B testing costs the e-commerce industry $13 billion a year. So you really don't want to do that. Just quickly, there's 2 types of testing. So you've got A/B testing, which is where you might test the original and 1 or more variants just on one particular area. Or you've got multivariate testing, where you're going to test a load of things at once, but you need a lot more traffic to do multivariate testing. So it's always better just to start with simple A/B testing and maybe move on to that into the future. When you've run more tests, you've got more data, you've more findings from these A/B tests. How long should you test for? Well, the proper answer is until you reach statistical significance. There's a lot of tools online that you can use to find that, but also the A/B testing tools do have these built in. But as a rule, you want at least 350 conversions per variation. But say, for example, you're running a simple A/B test and one version's got 350 conversions and the other's got 50, it's pretty clear that the one with 350 is winning, and you can end the test there. What should you measure as a conversion? this is really important. You want to measure revenue, not individual conversions, because it might be that you build a new version and it's converting really highly in terms of volume, but the average order value is much lower, so you're actually making less money. What tools to use? There's loads available. You've got super expensive enterprise tools on the market that cost thousands of dollars a month, but then there's also a lot of nice tools in the mid tier. Things like Visual Website Optimizer and Optimizely are really good. But recently, a few months ago, Google launched their own Google Optimize, which is really good integration with Google Analytics, and it's free. So we tend to use that unless a client has more specific requirements. So moving into the testing phase, well, the first thing you need to do is build the hypotheses. So this is you're applying the scientific method effectively. You've got an idea about what could solve a particular problem. Why, for example, loads of people are dropping out in the shipping process in the checkout, and you've got an idea for what might fix it. So then you obviously want to test that. But hopefully you can have more than one hypothesis. You're going to have covered a lot of problems with your site, and you can have a lot of ideas about things that you can fix, but you need to prioritize them. So you need to go through all of them, and you need to think, what's the potential impact of this on the site? Is this an area that's related to high value traffic? And you want to give them a score out of 5, and really start with the highest scoring and work down from there. And then, so you take your first hypothesis, and we're moving into the design phase. So you want to build a design for the thing that you're wanting to test, make sure that it's actually going to render properly, and then move on to building. A lot of the A/B split testing softwares will have a graphical user interface built in, so you can do it online, but it's not very good. You often encounter rendering problems. We much prefer to code the new pages from scratch. And then it's the easy bit, it's starting it. So this will take you a couple of minutes. You just plug in the URLs that you want to test. You plug in the particular criteria, if you're just targeting mobile or just a particular geographic location, and then you're away. And then you need to sit down and just wait. Even if you get a lot of traffic and maybe you could reach your statistical significance in 2 or 3 days, you want to run at least a week because there's different buyer behaviors on different days of the week. And also you want to factor in things like if there's any public holidays, changes in the weather, a particular heat wave might come along and then cause a spike in people buying a certain product which wouldn't be normal for that time of year. But then when it's finished, then you want to review the results of the test. Now, hopefully, you've run the test and your winning variation was correct, and then you can implement that as a permanent change in the site. But the reality is, quite often the test will fail. But that's good because you're getting more data, you're getting more learnings about what does and doesn't work. And if you formed a really strong hypothesis and you've got a good idea, then you go back to the drawing board, and maybe it wasn't free shipping that they want. Maybe it's a variation in shipping rates or something like that. And we want to go back and rinse and repeat, and we want to do another test. If it won, then we move on to something else. If it didn't, then we'll try another hypothesis for getting that to improve. But really, once you've started a testing program and you've done the conversion research, you want to always be testing. You want to always have something running and be planning the next one. In between website builds as well. So there's always a lot of optimization you can do on an existing site rather than just jumping into a new build and not having any of this learning. So just to conclude, we've run this process many, many times with our clients, and we've achieved amazing results. And it's no sort of magic bullet. It's no top 10 tips for improving your conversion rate. It's just hard work and following a process. And if you follow these similar steps that I've been talking about today, I'm very confident that you can achieve similar results that we have. And that's it. Any questions?
How much time does this all cost? And then I'm gearing, you know, we have some customers in the segment. Let's say, I think even in the Netherlands, 98% of the web shop have less than 5 people working for them.
Yeah.
So there's a huge, you know, web shop community out there, merchants with just a few people actually that could do this work. So in terms of time, what do you think it takes to take this seriously?
How long is a piece of string? As much as you can give. You know, it might be that maybe if you don't want to hire an agency like us who can do it for you, and you want to do it internally, then just segment it down. So look and just try and focus, okay, instead of looking at like everything, I'm just going to look at the mobile experience, or maybe even I'm just going to look at the mobile iPhone experience, and then even more, I'm just going to look at mobile iPhone for paid search, just so you can just drill it down into a specific segment. That's something that, again, is based on the fact that you've had a quick look at analytics and seen that it's worth doing that. But yeah, I mean, it can take days, weeks, months, or you can just spend a few hours doing this stuff. If you want to apply a more agile approach, just doing it in much more shorter bursts.
Anybody else has a question?
Yeah, thank you for a great presentation.
You're welcome.
And inspiring that we can double. I have a question. What is the minimum and maximum conversion rate on one e-commerce that you have experience with?
That's a good question. Minimum is probably 0.2% on mobile. Even lower than that is 0% when people start, but that's not really fair. Minimum is probably 0.2% on mobile, mobile organic. Maximum, I've seen 30, 40, 50% on email. Email always converts to the highest, like way more than anything else.
Okay, thank you. And
Yeah.
what is the industry that is that has the highest conversion rate? If not
You can't really put it down to industry. There's too many variables. It's, you know, what's your offering? How competitive are you? What's your price point, product? You know, it's. In our experience, we work with clients from fashion, beauty, healthcare, dog food, and everybody can achieve the top conversion rates if they have a good value proposition and if the website's optimized properly.
Okay, thank you. And
well,
one more, please.
Yeah.
What to offer to other people that that is not converting? What to offer other segment of 98% of 75% of the people that is not converting? What it, you know, like the 1% is converting on your site.
Yes.
But what to offer other people?
How to get them to convert more?
Yeah.
Go through that process and then you'll find out.
Okay.
Because it's always different. It's always different. You know, it might be that the site speed is really slow, and just fixing that, all of a sudden your conversion rate goes higher. It might be that you're shipping. I mean, we have many clients who they had the money and they're doing very well, but they were very resistant to give free shipping. They just didn't want to do it because they felt they were giving away money, and we convinced them to do it, and then that improved their conversion rate massively, and it improved their average order value because we set free shipping at a higher rate than they were previously at. So, you know, like I said before, it's not one thing. It's really dependent on the client. But the more you do this kind of stuff, the more you go through the process, the more you will trigger off ideas in your own mind.
Thank you.
Welcome.
Anybody else?
One last one.
Yeah.
Have you worked with eye tracking yet?
We have. It's still. We find it's still a bit of an area in development to be the really, really good stuff is very, very expensive.
Yeah.
And the lower level stuff doesn't really seem to glean much data. So from what we've been doing so far, we've done well, and it's still something that's on our radar. Mm-hmm. And it depends on the client really having the budget to do the higher level stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Good. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you.